Here's everything you need to know to master the L-sit. So let's first start with what an L-sit actually is. An L-sit is a calisthenics skills that most beginners learn when they start with their calisthenics journey, and there are two different types of L-sits. So we have the P-bars L-sit, where you push your body and legs up. The second different type of L-sit, which is a hanging L-sit, where you just hang from the bar and raise up your legs in an L-sit. Now in this video we will go through the L-sit on P-bars, because if you can do an L-sit on P-bars, you will have the hanging L-sit without having to practice for it. So let's first start with a warm-up. As you can tell, for an L-sit you need to have quite a bit of hamstring mobility. So we want to warm up the hamstrings first, and we can do that with elephant walks. So you can catch yourself to a pole, or you can put your hands on the ground, depending on your level. And then what you need to do is bend one of your knees forward, the other one we keep straight, and then we alternate. So you stand on your tippy toes, and then you switch the legs. The other foot should be completely flat, and then you switch again, and it should look something like this. For more advanced people who have the mobility, you can just put your hands on the floor, maybe your palms or even your fingers, and then try to do the exact same thing. We want to do a couple of those just to warm up the hamstrings before we start with the main progressions for this video. So let's start with the first progression. Bear in mind, I'm gonna start from a complete beginner today. So if you're a bit more advanced, you can just fast forward to the harder progressions. So let's start with progression 1. You need to find a wall and then sit in front of it and try to keep your back completely straight while your legs are also completely straight. Try to hold that position. If this is too hard for you, you can bring your hips a bit forward. And when you can comfortably sit with your back straight to the wall, you can try positioning your hands in between your knees and your hips and bringing up your shoulders a bit forward. Your hamstrings might be pulling quite a bit when you do it if you're not mobile enough. So what I want to mention here that is really important is that you should always work on your hamstring mobility when you're trying to learn the L-sit, because you need to have quite a bit of flexibility to be able to do it. So for progression number 2, if this is too hard for you, you cannot sit like this, what I would recommend to focus on is some hamstring stretches. So the stretch you can do to make your hamstrings more flexible is either sit on the floor and then try to touch your toes, because when you can do that, you actually have the mobility to do the L-sit. And the second stretch you can try is to stand upright, and then from this position, try to go forward with your body and then lower and lower and lower until you can touch your toes. And then again, you have the mobility to do the L-sit. So now if your hamstrings are flexible enough to keep your hands in between your knees and your hips, what you can do is try to lift up one of your legs upwards and do a couple of reps with one leg, then switch and do a couple of reps with the other leg. I will be explaining exactly how many reps and sets you should be doing in a later part of this video, so make sure to watch until the end. Once you can comfortably do the leg lifts, it's time to go to the next progression, for which you're gonna need either yoga blocks, a step up, or parallels. Now, you don't need to buy these specific ones, but those are the ones from Coordination that I am personally using, and you're gonna get a 10% discount if you use the code LAURA10. Check them out in the description below, and you're also gonna support this channel. So for progression number 4, you need to put the parallels at shoulder width and then sit in between them. Then what we're gonna try to do is lift up your hips away from the ground like this. Now this may be too hard for you. You don't need to lift up your hips fully then, but really try to lift them up only a tiny bit from the ground and then go back down. And then as you progress, you will be able to lift them up fully. If you're able to hold the stop position for about 10 to 20 seconds, then you're ready to go to progression number 6. For progression number 6, what you need to do is lift up your hips again, but then also try to lift up one of your legs and then hold it for about 3 seconds and then alternate with the other leg. Then you can progress to about 5 seconds per leg, and then switch again, 5 seconds the other leg, until you can do about 10 to 20 seconds. Then you're ready for the next progression. For progression number 7, you can leave out the parallels, you will not need them anymore. So what you can try to do now is keep your legs together, put your hands in between your knees and hips again, and then instead of trying to lift only one leg at a time, you're gonna try to lift up both like this. I want you to really focus on keeping your shoulders forward, your back straight, and then lifting up your legs at the same time, not one of them first then the other, and keeping your knees completely straight. This is a really hard progression, so if you've made it up until here, you're doing a great job. Now this is really the final progression that you need to be able to do before you achieve the L-sit, and for that you're gonna need either a P-bars or maybe even 2 chairs at home, whatever you have, just a higher elevation. And then what you need to do is just bring yourself up on the P-bars and then hold one knee in the air and the other leg completely straight. Once you can do that, you can bring both your knees up and try to hold that. As you progress, you can even put one leg up completely straight and the other one with the bended knee. And then finally, you'll be able to go with both legs, and then you've achieved your first L set, so congrats. How to integrate this into your workout? So let's first start with how often you should actually practice the L sit. Most beginners make the mistake that they practice the skill every single day, which is a lot of overload for the muscles. Don't make this mistake. It is enough to practice 2 to maximum 3 times per week and still practice enough to be able to achieve the skill. So how should you schedule the L sit within your specific workout? That really depends on your priorities. If the L sit is your number one priority, then definitely begin your workout with the L sit first thing in a workout. And if the L sit is not that important to you, then you can schedule it within other exercises or at the end of your workout. So how should you actually practice for the L sit? Now first begin with a warm-up, which is really important, and then choose a progression that is suitable for your specific level and do anywhere between 3 to 5 sets of this specific progression in every single workout. And don't forget to also stretch in between the sets so that you can keep your mobility to actually achieve the L sit. How many repetitions should you actually do per set? I would recommend to start as low as 5 repetitions or seconds, depending on the progression that you're at, to as much as about 10 to 12 repetitions or seconds. And if you can do more than that, that is amazing, but that probably means that you're able to progress to a harder progression. And the most important question that you guys will probably be asking is how to actually progress with the L sit, and that is by implementing progressive overload. Now, some of you might have heard this term before. It means that you either every single workout need to improve the quality of your sets, which you can do by improving your technique, or by increasing the quantity of the repetitions that you're doing. So for instance, every single time that you practice the L sit, you add one more repetition to your set, or you add one more second, depending on the progression that you're at. And if it's possible, it's best to improve both the quantity and the quality at the same time. But I know that this might be really hard to do every single workout, so focus on at least improving either the quantity or the quality every single workout to make sure that you progress with the L sit. If you have achieved the L sit, you might ask, what should I do now? Well, first of all, congratulations, and second of all, you might want to continue integrating the L sit within more difficult calisthenics skills. So once you've mastered the L sit, as I mentioned, you will have the hanging L sit for free. So you can do L sit pull-ups for harder progression, or you can do a V sit. Oh my god, that was so hard. And even a handstand to an L sit.